The grinding roar of heavy machinery tore through the morning mist like a bad omen, pulling me out of bed before the sun even crested the Colorado foothills. I stepped onto the porch of my family ranch, heart pounding, and the sight stopped me cold. A gaping trench, 10 feet wide and freshly carved, slicing straight through the middle of my driveway, the only way in or out of my 15 acres in Harmony Ridge estates. Muddy water pooled at the bottom, and a couple of workers in hard hats stood around their excavator, avoiding my gaze. HOA project, one muttered. Flood control. Yeah, right. This wasn't about water. This was Karen Blackwell's latest power move, the HOA president who'd turned keeping things nice into a full-blown dictatorship. My dad had bought this land back in the 80s, before any fancy estates sprang up around us. He built that driveway with his own hands, hauling gravel in an old Ford to make sure we could always get supplies in and cattle out. I grew up here, learned to ride horses on these slopes, fixed fences in blizzards. When Dad passed 5 years ago, I promised to keep it whole. The HOA started innocent enough, yard standards, speed bumps, but when Karen took over 3 years back, it became her personal kingdom. Letters about non-compliant fences, my dad's old cedar one, complaints about my truck ruining the aesthetic. I ignored them. Until now. I stormed to the HOA office that afternoon, the small community hall smelling of burnt coffee and self-importance. Karen sat at the head table, blonde bob perfect, pastel blazer crisp, clipboard like a scepter. The other 2 board members flanked her like minions. Luke, she said with that fake sweet smile, we were expecting you. Sit. What's with the trench? I asked, voice steady but fists clenched. You cut off my only access without a word. She flipped a page on her clipboard. Per Article 7.2 of the Covenants, stormwater management is a community priority. This channel improves drainage for the whole ridge. Unfortunate it crosses your path, but you have other options. Perhaps a new easement we could discuss for a fee. Fee? You mean selling part of my land? I shot back. The room tensed. One board member shifted uncomfortably. Karen's smile didn't waver. We're all in this together, Luke. Flexibility keeps the neighborhood harmonious. Most homeowners cooperate. I pulled my phone from my pocket, hit record openly now. So this improvement is to force me into giving up land? That's not drainage, that's extortion dressed as rules. Her eyes flicked to the phone, smile cracking just a hair. Recording without consent? That's against our privacy policy, you know. Funny, I said, pocketing it after stopping. Since when do you follow your own rules? I walked out, but the war was on. Back home, I grabbed my tape measure and drone. The trench wasn't even straight, angled weird, ignoring the natural slope, clearly aimed to block me. No stakes, no permits posted. I flew the drone, captured every angle. The collapsed edges, the way it violated the easement my dad had for road access. Neighbors peeked over fences, whispering. Old man Ramirez nodded at me later. Saw him start at 5 a.m., no signs. If you need a statement. I spent nights organizing, photos time-stamped, emails to Karen unanswered, county maps showing no approval. Then I called the county planning office. Temporary agricultural crossing permit? Approved, as long as it's compliant. Perfect. 2 days later, the skid steer rumbled in, gravel truck behind it. I started at the narrowest point, layering crusher run, compacting it solid. By noon, a raised path took shape. Karen's white SUV screeched up, her and 2 board members piling out, phones up filming. This is unauthorized alteration, she shrieked. Stop immediately or fines start at $100 a day. I killed the engine, wiped sweat. Got my county permit right here, Karen. Per your own bylaws, Article 12 allows emergency access fixes. Or didn't you read the rules you love so much? Her face reddened. We'll see about that. The sheriff rolled up soon after, called by her probably. But after checking my papers, he shrugged. He's within rights, ma'am. Back off his property. They slunk away like scolded cats, but the letters started flooding in. Violations for obstructing community works. Visual pollution from my makeshift bridge. My mailbox mysteriously leaned sideways one morning, flag missing the next. I photographed everything, added to the folder. Dark chuckle escaped me. Nothing says civilized community, like tampering with mail while preaching standards. At the next HOA meeting, Karen stood tall. Certain residents are disrupting harmony with reckless actions. Eyes turned to me. I stood calm. The trench you dug without permits cut me off. I fixed it legally. If that's disruption, maybe check your own project. Murmurs grew. Karen snapped. This meeting isn't for debate. Then stop debating me in public, I replied evenly. The room's energy shifted. But she escalated, cease and desist, more fines. I hired a lawyer, stacked binders, drone footage, witness statements, her emails admitting leverage for compliance. The turning point came when Karen filed a complaint with the county herself, demanding they remove the obstruction. The inspector showed up, clipboard ready. We walked the trench. No permits? No hydrology study? This crosses an easement illegally. Erosion risk high. Project halted immediately. He slapped a red tag on it. Karen sputtered. But we're the HOA. Community authority. Authority doesn't trump county code, ma'am, the inspector said. And your channel is flooding lower properties. Fix it or face bigger issues. Her face was priceless, the queen dethroned by her own improvement. Court was the knockout. Small room, judge no nonsense. Karen's lawyer babbled about standards. Judge asked for evidence. Their photo? Blurry. Mine? Binders full, timestamps, inspector testimony. Your Honor, the HOA violated every rule they enforce on others. Judge leaned in during Karen's turn. Ms. Blackwell, your covenants require permits for any alteration. Yet you dug without, and retaliated with unproven fines? Karen stammered. It was necessary. Necessary to harass? Judge cut. Evidence shows easement violation, no notice, and your actions damaged this man's livelihood. Order, refill the trench at HOA expense, pay all his costs and damages, remove all fines, and issue a public apology in writing. Case closed. The gavel hit like sweet justice. Karen looked smaller, board members avoiding eyes. Weeks later, their crew filled the trench under county watch, faces long. My gravel crossing stood proud, now permanent with approval. Neighbors waved more, one even brought pie. You stood up for all of us, they said. I stood on the crossing at sunset, boots on solid ground my hands built. They tried to divide my land, trap me with rules they ignored. But persistence and truth flipped the script. Karen stepped down soon after, personal reasons. The bylaws she worshipped buried her. In the end, the land was whole again, my dad's legacy intact. But the real win? Seeing how the loudest rule enforcers crumble when the mirror turns on them. So tell me, folks, true or false, the person screaming loudest about community standards is often the one breaking them the most. Drop your thoughts below. Who really got karma'd here?